Good evening, everyone. If I can have your attention, please. Good evening. Okay, I would like to call the regular meeting of the Milton City Council for Monday, October 4th, 2021 to order. The city strongly recommends that you review tonight's agenda carefully, and if you would wish to speak on any item on the agenda, please bring your comment cards to the clerk as soon as possible. While the Milton rules allow a speaker to turn in their comment card up until the clerk calls the agenda item. Once the agenda item is called, no more comment cards can be accepted. So will the city clerk please call the roll and make general announcements?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'll be happy to call roll for the October 4th, 2021 regular meeting. I would like to remind those in attendance to please silence all cell phones at this time. Those attending the meeting who would like to make a public comment, you are required to complete a public comment card prior to speaking on the item. Your comment card must be presented to the city clerk prior to the agenda item being called. All speakers, please identify yourself by name, address, and organization before beginning your comment. If you are representing an organization, an affidavit is required stating you have the authority to speak on behalf of that organization. Please review tonight's agenda, and if you would like to make a comment, please bring your comment card to me now. Demonstration of any sort within the chamber is prohibited. Please refrain from any applause, cheering, booing, outburst, or dialogue with any person speaking. Anyone in violation will be asked to leave. As I call roll this evening, please confirm your attendance. Mayor Joe Lockwood.
Here.
Councilmember Peyton Jamison.
Here.
Councilmember Paul Moore.
Here.
Councilmember Laura Bentley.
Here.
Councilmember Carol Cookerly.
Here.
Councilmember Joe Longoria.
Here.
And for the record, Councilmember Rick Morg is absent. Would you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening. I want to welcome everybody here tonight. We appreciate you being here. Also, a special welcome to our Hopewell Mustangs. Glad you guys are here tonight. So looking forward to our proclamation. So if our city clerk will please call the next item.
Mayor, that item is approval of meeting agenda item number 21293.
Okay, I'd like to make a couple of changes. I'd like to move general public comment until after reports and presentations, if that's okay.
Okay.
As well as add an executive session to discuss land acquisition, personnel, and potential litigation.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? I'll open up for a motion.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to amend the agenda as read.
Second. Okay, I have a motion from Councilmember Bentley with a second from Councilmember Moore. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
That's unanimous. All right, so as we change the agenda on public comment, we'll come back to public comment and we'll move on to the next item.
Okay, Mayor, if you'll
Consent
just
agenda.
hold that spot for future. Are you ready for consent, Mayor?
Yes.
Thank you, Mayor. Our first consent item is approval of the September 20th, 2021 City Council meeting minutes. It's agenda item number 21294. Our second item, approval of the financial statements and investment report for period 11, August 2021. It's agenda item number 21295. Our third item, approval of an agreement between the City of Milton and Global Music Rights, LLC, granting the city legal authorization to play shares of the music that Global Music Rights, LLC represents in city spaces. It's agenda item number 21296. Our next item, approval of a construction services agreement between the City of Milton and AAA Tree Experts Group, LLC, for the removal of hazardous trees at Providence Park. It's agenda item number 21297. Our next item, approval of a construction services agreement with Peak Pavement Marking, LLC, for thermoplastic striping and raised pavement marking project. It's agenda item number 21298. Our next item, approval of a professional services agreement between the City of Milton and Data Media Associates, Inc. for property tax billing services. Agenda item number 21299. Our final consent item, approval of a subdivision of plats and revisions. The name of the development is Jackson Farms at 2000 Birmingham Road. It's land lot 387 and 406 at District 2, Section 2. It's a minor plat, subdividing one parcel into 3 tracts ranging in size from 3 acres to 3.87 acres. It's a total of 9.878 acres with a density of 0.30 lots per acre. Mayor Lockwood?
Okay, do I have a motion on the consent agenda?
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion that we approve the consent agenda as read.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion from Councilmember Cookley for approval with a second from Councilmember Moore. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
That's unanimous. Okay, we'll move on to reports and presentations.
Thank you, Mayor. That first reports and presentation is the proclamation honoring the 7U Hopewell Mustangs baseball team for winning the Dizzy Dean World Series Championship. Mayor Lockwood?
Good evening. It's an honor and a privilege to present this proclamation to our Dizzy Dean World Champions, Series Champions of 7 and under Hopewell Mustangs baseball team. And we are glad you guys are here. We're really proud. So, whereas baseball requires skilled hand-eye coordination, mental awareness, physical endurance, and teamwork, and whereas the sport has long been woven into the fabric of our community, spearheaded by the Hopewell Youth Association, which has run baseball programs out of Bell Memorial Park since 1986. And whereas Hopewell players represent Milton well year in and year out with their exemplary talents and attitudes, with one team in particular having recently risen to great heights. And whereas in the summer of 2021, the 7 and under Hopewell Mustangs finished their regular season with an incredible 24-2 record. And whereas following this great season, the team advanced to and went undefeated at the state Dizzy Dean tournament to win the Georgia State Championship. And whereas, not done yet, the 7 and under Mustangs traveled to South Haven, Mississippi, and defeated every team they played from the Southeast, including the state champions from Alabama and Mississippi, to be crowned Dizzy Dean World Series champions. And whereas Milton is proud of the players on the 2021 7 and under Hopewell Mustangs for being champions on the field, as well as off in the classroom and the community. Now, therefore, we, the mayor and city council of the city of Milton, honor the Dizzy Dean World Series champions 7 and under Hopewell Mustangs baseball team. And this is given under our hand and seal of the city of Milton, Georgia, on the 4th day of October 2021. And again, I want to reiterate how proud we are of you guys. And I know your parents and your coaches and your friends and your teachers and the whole community is. And with that, I want to ask the team to come forward and meet us up here. And I'll have the council, we'll get a picture after I make these presentations.
Congratulations.
There you go.
All the good coaching, right?
We're not going to put that on the record. No.
A lot of proclamations to hand out.
One's tall. Actually, this works. Oh, this works. This is fine. Someone wants this.
If you'll take the extra, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, Mayor's going there? That works. Well, you're like on the team, yeah?
Yeah, Coach Lockwood.
Ready? One. Everyone look up here. One, Two. You guys got yours? You want to get a little closer?
Thanks again and congratulations, guys. All right, so Tammy, if you'll please call the next item.
That next item, Mayor, is the presentation of proposed stormwater quality at former Milton Country Club, presented by Ms. Sarah Leaders.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So tonight we have a presentation on the hydrology study as well as proposed stormwater improvements at former Milton Country Club. Start with reviewing the master plan and the work that's currently underway. Then I'll turn it over to Pond and Company to present the results of the hydrology study and the possible improvements that they identified through task 1 and 2 of their contract. And then they'll also discuss recommendations for the next phase, which is task 3. Then I'll take back over and discuss some possible funding sources that have been identified for stormwater projects. And finally, we'll conclude with getting direction on the future design services for that task 3. And so really this presentation's a checkpoint to review what we've done so far and make sure we're on the right track before we proceed with design services on the stormwater projects. So the master plan was adopted in August of 2019, and it included conceptual proposals for the active area, for trails, and for land management. As part of the land management concept, it included recommending a hydrology study to guide the process for removing drainage pipes and structures and restoring natural swells. So this is a segment from the master plan, again, that highlights the description of the hydrology study. Also part of the master plan in the guiding principles of the master plan, which is what laid out the community vision for the property. There's this section that talks about restoring nature throughout the passive preserve. And one of the key items in that is also looking at naturalized stormwater, removing drainage structures, and looking at that through a hydrology study. So we have 2 studies that are underway right now in addition to the construction of the phase 1 of the trail. We have on the right talks about the planning services that are being provided by the Southern Conservation Trust. And what they're doing is looking at a baseline study and identifying both man-made and ecological features of the property, as well as plants and animals that they identify on the property. They will be providing a permanent vegetative planting plan for the west side of the property where we're currently building the trail. And then they will provide a future stormwater planting plan for the results that come out of the Pond and Company study, as well as habitat restoration. Now on the left side, I highlighted some of the items with Pond's study, the hydrology component. Their baseline looks at the drainage patterns. They're going to look at the drainage systems and recommend improvements, identify those drainage systems which are necessary, and then they're going to identify drainage systems which are isolated and can be removed. And then finally, concept locations for stormwater best management practices. BMPs, as they're referred, are considered measures that improve water quality. They're used to treat or reduce water pollution as stormwater runs across a property. In May of this year, we issued a notice to proceed to Pond and Company for the hydrology study as well as the stormwater infrastructure concepts. And so now I'll turn it over to the consultants from Pond and Company that are here to present the next couple slides. We've got Kevin Hendricks and Tanya Norman.
Hello, everyone. As Sarah said, Pond and Company has been working with the city over the last couple months to perform 2 tasks. The first task was the site hydrology study. The second task was the stormwater management hydraulics, where we took the findings of the hydrology study and turned them into actual concept designs. And then we will talk about task 3 a little later. So the goals of our our goal throughout this process was to recommend improvements for providing natural flow paths and low maintenance infrastructure with a focus on modifications to existing drainage systems to restore natural drainage, and also to identify stormwater BMPs that can be put in place to improve both water quality and the quantity of water that is leaving the site. So our first task was to perform the hydrology study to analyze current conditions on the site. The first step of this task was to delineate the individual drainage basins. You can see them in with the red lines in this photograph on the right. So using these basins, we were able to look at existing land covers and land use and create a computer model that gives us a lot of data on what's happening with the stormwater on the site currently. So through delineating these basins, we learned that the study limits are approximately 350 acres. Of this 350 acres, approximately 82 acres is the Wood Valley subdivision. Approximately 140 acres is what we're calling the park area. It's the former golf course. And approximately 128 acres is offsite area that flows through the golf course. So this is the water that will need to be accommodated in whatever we do so it can pass through and get to the creek. This study area is bounded by Chicken Creek on the east side, which is page south on the plan you're looking at. Freemanville Road on the west side, Dinsmore Road on the north, and some residential properties on the south and southwest corners. Here's a little better detailed look at the individual drainage basins. You'll see that we have 28 individual basins. These range in size from approximately 3/4 of an acre to approximately 60 acres. And these represent the areas that flow to a particular point of interest. So it could be an existing pond, a culvert, a piping system, a ditch, basically anywhere we would want to know how much flow and how much water is going through. Ultimately, all of these basins flow into Chicken Creek. We have identified 13 different study points or study lines. This is basically means there's 13 different distinct places where water enters Chicken Creek from this site. So we were able to take these basin delineations and our computer model and start putting together some concepts for stormwater management for the site. So we looked at, in addition to removing the existing piping systems, which was a big part of this study, we also looked at the different best management practices or BMPs that we could install to improve water quality and the quantity of water that is leaving the site. We focused on 5 main practices for this. The first 2, bioretention ponds and enhanced swales, are primarily for water quality. They help a little bit on peak flow reduction, but they're more for infiltration and water quality. Revegetation is another practice. It's where you take a previously developed piece of land and return it to more of a wooded condition, more of a natural condition, which will result in less water leaving. And then we also looked at 2 different kinds of detention ponds, which will reduce the peak flows that are leaving the site and provide some water quality benefits. In addition to new practices, We also looked at the existing detention ponds and lakes that are on the property and how they could be modified to provide additional benefits. So the first thing we did was put together kind of a wish list of everything that could be done in every basin on the study area. So this results in the removal of approximately 3,000 feet of storm sewer piping and 37 drainage structures. In addition, we are adding or modifying 17 best management practices, which you can see is the bright green on this slide. As you can see, this is quite a bit of work, and implementing this all at once is probably not really realistic when it comes to budgets and practical reasons. So we looked at ways to prioritize what we wanted to do, and I will let Tanya take over from here.
Good evening. So under task 3 is when we'll start developing more of the construction document phases, prioritizing which BMPs of which areas that will be treated first. And so as we work through this task, we'll be working with the city on how we develop these BMPs and phasing for these stormwater facilities. In this task, we'll be focusing on new BMPs or improving existing detention facilities to provide some additional water quality and treatment quality control for the facilities. And this includes pond upgrades and repairs, enhancing pipe crossings across the trails and boardwalks, and providing new boardwalks. And also a future bridge location will be evaluated as part of task 3. This task will also include providing more natural swells, so as we remove piping along in areas, we would want to transition those into natural swells. Also improving existing structured drainage systems like the detention facilities that are out there. And then we'll look at removing these, as I mentioned, the storm structures that are isolated to the golf course area. So these isolated storm systems, they don't connect to the residential areas. They're just primarily providing drainage in the green space. This task will also include providing a cost estimate and budget for each phase of the project. Here you'll see a map of the proposed focus areas, which could be broken down into phases for the BMPs or each construction project. So active area 1, number 1 is the active area. And this one would be taking the existing piped drainage system that's carrying the water from that impervious area into, it flows towards the residential area. So we would divert that and change that so that it would be treated by a BMP and then routed through a system of BMPs that goes into the number 2 low point on the west side. So on that west side would be a system of BMPs that would be in parallel potentially, that would then discharge into there's an existing detention facility at number 2. And that provides some quantity control there. As we move to number 3, phasing area, we will be providing a pipe crossing, pipe crossing for the trail. And that also will be providing some BMPs that take and treat water as it flows to that area. All of these systems drain around the system into an existing wet weather ditch. And our primary goal is to treat as much of that water as it flows into that area before it enters Chicken Creek. Also, as we go around on the south side, there's phase number 4, which is the low area, future boardwalk and southern lane. So that's another existing large detention facility that we would look at proposing improvements on, and also so that it also provides some additional additional treatment and quantity control for the amount of water or the peak flows that leave the sites. And as we move to the east side, we would continue to provide a system of BMPs, bioretention areas, wet and detention ponds through that area, and along that, also proposing a future bridge across a large drainage ditch there. That area, as been explained to us, has some erosion issues now, so that will be part of looking at improving that condition there. And also adding the BMPs on this east side would also mitigate some of the flows and erosion issues along the creek bank there. As we continue around to number 6, that's also an existing detention pond that's on the city's property. So that would be, we would look at that as well as part of the improvements that we would make to provide some additional water quantity control and quality control there. And these phases would be in line with the trail phases, of construction of the trail phases as well.
Yeah, so we wanted to show this slide that showed the trail phases that are underway and what's upcoming and how these would relate with those. On to some possible funding for stormwater projects. First one I want to talk about is the Georgia Outdoor Stewardship Program grant. The city's application for this program and grant would include multiple elements of a project at the former Milton Country Club. It would be the trails, the stormwater, the replanting and revegetation, as well as habitat restoration. So all that could work into that grant application that will be discussed later in the meeting tonight. That grant set up for up to $3 million with a proposed 50% match. So the graphic on the right of this screen shows what that funding scenario could look like. Stormwater could be up to $1.5 million of that grant. The other elements of it, the trail would be about $1,300,000 for the Dinsmore Road side path phase, and then $200,000 in plantings and restoration. What we're looking at with this grant as well is possibly stacking some of the funding sources. So the Dinsmore side path could be paid for with T-SPLOST money. So that could be our local match that would count towards the 50% local match. That could be funded with T-SPLOST. For the hydrology, the stormwater improvements, there's two different Okay, sorry. American Rescue Plan Act, the ARPA funds. So those have been distributed to the states and then to the cities individually. The state right now has an application period open for distributing those funds for stormwater projects. So we could apply for that money that could then be used as our local match on the outdoor stewardship grant. That could also solely fund the hydrology if we didn't move forward with the outdoor stewardship grant. The other option for the ARPA is the money that the city has received, that as we start looking at that, stormwater is an eligible category for that funding. And finally, we have local capital funds. We have money set aside for funding the future phases of former Milton Country Club. So in summary, task 1, we looked at, again, the entire property and how stormwater flows on and off the property. In task 2, we started looking at those possible BMP improvements that would reduce flow and volumes and improve water quality leaving the property. And finally, we recommend addressing the structured drainage systems and then a focus area approach to new BMPs. So tonight, I'd like to see if there's any questions, comments, or other considerations we need to take into account before we proceed with the design based on the recommendations. Like I said, this is a checkpoint just to make sure we're on the right path and go in the right direction before we proceed with further design work. over 3,000.
It's a lot. So I just want to make sure that anything that we're doing now is not going to be disturbed by the hydrology study, which,
Right. I want to point out two areas on this slide. The first is this area number 2, the low point. So we're actually bringing the trail, currently the old golf cart path actually crossed this area. There was almost a 6-foot diameter pipe, a couple pipes here where water flowed underneath the path. But with our new trail alignment and bringing it up close to the road, we actually have no crossings of that area, which will make any improvements we do in that area not conflict with the trail as it's going in. The other area to point out is number 3. That's where we discussed a few weeks ago about the pipe crossing versus the boardwalk. The pipe crossing was needed to elevate the trail and just to provide an area for water to flow underneath the trail. So the BMPs we're looking at there are actually upstream of that pipe crossing. Once it crosses under the pipe, it enters a kind of a wet area as it then drains towards the southern lake. So for the work that's going on the west side, there would be no impacts to the trail and the proposed systems that are going in.
thank you. Also, as I recall, we have, or not we, the country club had piped all the way into Chicken Creek. Were there not pipes that enter into the creek?
I don't have the map that shows the exact endpoints of those, but we did identify, the beginning and end point of those systems to determine if they were unused or they could be removed if they weren't serving a purpose other than just draining the golf course. So we did look at it from that standpoint.
So those will be removed?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, because, our neighbors, North Valley, they're very, very, because they are remediating their side of the bank. And I just want to make sure that that's part of our plan, is to do our part to make sure that we're not eroding the bank. And if, I can't imagine being able to pull that pipe out without having some damage. So we would restore the bank and make sure that it is back to its natural state as much as possible, so that we're all working together to restore the natural storm water of both sides of Chicken Creek, because it doesn't do any good for one side to be done.
I'll let Pond 2 speak a minute to this, but that was where there's 13 different points along Chicken Creek where the water enters. And if you had anything else to add about how those could be.
So here, the 13 points along the borders of Chicken Creek along just upstream. So all along the edge, there were pipes that discharge, as you mentioned, into Chicken Creek. So what we would propose is to remove those and convert that concentrated flow as much as possible to a sheet flow, so that it would reduce the erosion along the edge. And in some areas, we're proposing to revegetate along the bank there. So that also provides some additional protection of the stream banks there. So.
Thank you. That answered my question. Appreciate it.
Actually, while you're still at the microphone, I'm sorry if I could ask a follow-up question to that. So I just want to make, and if I heard you correctly, the reason we're extracting that is to take out that concentrated flow, and it will reduce the erosion
Yes.
potential for that.
Mhm.
So does it have to come out, or can there be a point where further upstream, further up pipe, that concentration is either redirected? Where does it have to go all the way to the stream bank? The reason I'm asking that is, per Laura's questions too, is the disruption of the stream bank. If we can avoid that, is there a point up pipe where that can be stopped instead and not have to actually get to the stream bank?
There are in some cases where there are structures that are just upstream of the discharge point. I believe is what you're asking, if instead of taking them out, we can modify them so that they don't actually discharge. Is that what you're
Yes.
asking?
Yep.
So they're basically would be abandoned in place except for the upstream ends of the pipes that actually carry the flow to that connecting point.
The water flow, in my mind, is still achieved with what you're after, where you change it from the concentrated pipe flow that goes directly into the stream. You still accommodate that part of your plan, but without necessarily extracting the pipes that it would be so disruptive to the stream barrier.
Well, we can look at maybe abandoning some of them in place so that we can convert some inlet tops to junction boxes and then just close those off so that they don't receive that flow. And then the upstream ends of the pipe that are beyond the stream buffers would be what we could remove so that it's not carrying anything. We can remove those pipes as we provide improvements along that eastern edge.
Okay, yeah, if that doesn't significantly change the cost of the study, but also potentially saves money without having to do that extraction and then reclamation, I would love to see at least some consideration of that.
The only other concern, I believe, was that the condition of some of these pipes could be in the shape that if they're not removed, then they could create further erosion.
Right.
So that's something that we would need to look at as we make that determination.
Okay, and that's where I wanted to go with my second question, is with the extraction of the over 3,000 linear feet of other pipe that currently exists, is that absolutely necessary as well? And is it for that reason? Is it because the deterioration of the pipes are such that we're probably cost saving by removing it now rather than having a failure later and extracting it?
That's based on discussions that we've had with the city, that there are a number of pipe systems out there that are deteriorated and that need to be removed to prevent further issues.
And I recognize it's going to be an evolving process, because when we're starting over with what the natural end result will be, it will take us a while to get there. So you're going to have more runoff to deal with in the early phases of the project than you will a couple of years from now when the natural habitat begins to reclaim itself there. So, okay, you've answered my question. Thank you. I appreciate
Welcome.
that.
Okay, anybody else?
Just one last comment, if there's no one else. Sarah, I like the side path on Densmore. I think that's a great idea to try to seek the T-SPOTS funding for that. It seems like it is exactly what it is earmarked for, so.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Han, for being here tonight, too. All right, Tammy, if you please call the next item.
Mayor, that next item is presentation on new restroom design options for the Providence Park area. It's presented by Mr. Tom McElveen, Parks and Rec Manager.
All right, good evening, Mayor and Council. This evening, I'm thrilled to talk to you about restrooms at Providence Park. Let's see here. All right, so currently out at Providence Park, when it was open, we had just an ADA portable restroom that was utilized as a restroom facility at Providence. With all the improvements that are going on at the park now, with the new trail and the new pier, we also had a restroom as part of that new park design. We applied for a grant in 2018 for $100,000, and it was awarded. Bids were collected back in April. We solicited for the restroom, pier, and trails. And unfortunately, the restroom came in over 1.3 million. So I kind of went back to the drawing board. So I went back to DNR and, asked for a revision of scope if they would be willing to go down that road. It was well received. And we put the amendment through back in September. And the scope was approved to go from a stick-built structure to something more prefabricated, essentially. I put 2 restroom designs in that bid just in case. I did a 4-stall restroom and then a 2-stall as a backup. And we moved from a composting toilets in the original design to just a septic system. I had a percolation, I had a perk test done, and it was able to accommodate septic. And I also requested the project completion date get moved in lieu of the time that we need to change everything. So I have for you two simplified concepts, and I'm looking for some guidance as to what would be preferred. Here's concept number one. This is the larger restroom. It's got 2 stalls in the men's, 2 stalls in the women's. It looks real nice. It fits that Milton architecture. It's got a storage room in the middle. You can't see on this view, but on the next slide, you'll be able to see more of a schematic shot. And it will have water fountains in between the 2 doors, and it is ADA accessible. The cost for this restroom, $546,000. And here's kind of your design. This is the men's room on the right with the urinal and the stall here, and then here's the women's room. Any questions before I move to 2?
Square footage?
I don't have it here. In fact, it wasn't even provided, but I believe it's around 500 square feet. I can get that.
Tom, sorry, going back, what's the roof material? Is that shingle or metal? Shingle. Thanks.
Here's concept 2. It's more of a simple prefab design. It's got 1 stall in the men's, 1 stall in the women's. Storage and mechanical closet, just like the other. There are no water fountains on the building, but we can tuck it into like a freestanding unit down the road. And it is ADA accessible as well. This image here is just a plain gray. That's the stock image, but we choose our own colors going down the road. And its cost is $385,000. Here's kind of a more of a layout for this one as well. So both of these restrooms currently can be funded. Currently in the Providence Park grant account balance, where this would be coming from, we have $127,140. But funds can be transferred from the PAYGO capital fund project for Providence Park, and there is plenty in there to cover either restroom. So what I'm looking for today is, do we want to proceed with concept 1, concept 2, or we could not proceed at all and, just at this time, stick with the portable restrooms out there. And we'd have to forego the grant at that point. Any questions?
Joe?
Yep, Joe. Yes, sir.
So $1,000 a square foot sounds a little expensive to me, but I don't have enough background into every single facility that the city's ever built. Do you think that falls within the realm of being in line with other construction projects? Is that price per square foot fit into the realm of being reasonable?
It is a good bit higher than what we had anticipated. Double what we anticipated, I would say. But this is what the bids came back at. So
Could you just maybe get a $500,000 house and put there and take the rest of the house off of it?
say that.
Hey, Tom, who is your bid audience? I happen to do a lot of construction stuff, and I've really never seen, I'm not sure, numbers like that. Who are you asking for bids from? Just commercial builders?
We put them out publicly. We don't solicit bids. They go out publicly. And this was an ITB, right?
It was RFP.
RFP. So it goes out and we get the responses. It goes out through something called BidNet. And from there, we get the responses off that. We have to obviously go by specific purchasing guidelines and prohibits us generally from going out and soliciting those. So-
Are we prohibited from using local home builders? Because this is a very simple project. It's on a slab, it's simple.
Nothing prevents anybody from bidding it so long, in an RFP, they obviously have to be able to show that they have the capability to be able to complete the project. But other than that, you know, a shed builder can come in and submit a bid.
But we can't require or designate it for it.
Right, I understand that, but we just got an idea. Is the RFP still fresh? Or are we going to go out with a new RFP, or we just got an indication at this point, early stage? Or are we done? Is RFP done?
It's done. Was this the, how many, did we get more than one back?
We did not.
Well, that's a problem.
Oh, we only got one.
Got one.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah,
problem.
that's probably.
There were upwards of 25 that downloaded the RFP, but we had one
Does this
response.
include utilities to it? And
It does.
Does that keep that, number one, square footage
Yeah.
on a small with restrooms is going to be extremely high per square foot, but also if,
Yes.
I don't know
Running
if
the
you have a
septic, you gotta
breakdown
run the
on what
plumbing
the-
from the street all the way down, the
Yeah, so
electricity
that-
down.
that could be the majority of the cost right there. So I don't know what the breakout is. That may be something you want to look at.
So,
Or-
question about the grant. How much more time do we have on it? Did they extend the time?
Yes, March 31st of 2022.
Does that just mean the grant has to be awarded by then? Or not
No,
grant,
no,
but
the
has
project
to be
has
awarded?
to be completed, all the paperwork's done, so.
So I just have a couple comments about, I'm there, I used to be there 3 times a week. So right now the park is very, I mean, it's pretty low key. I've never been there when there were more than 4 people there at the same time. So I don't think the first concept is needed if we want to use the grant. I mean, I think you're right. I think that getting the water there from this and then putting a septic and a drain field in is probably, I mean, that's what, 150?
Depends how far it is. I don't know.
Yeah, so anyway, I mean, it just is, do we want to utilize this grant to, you know, in the fashion that we need to in the timeframe?
When is the latest you need a decision to move forward?
I would think in the next few weeks, because if we were to go with concept 2, the smaller one, it needs to be ordered and delivered. And the last conversations I had was, you know, they need to get the order in soon so it comes in on time.
Okay, let me ask you a question. Process-wise, this still would have to come, I mean, we could give you a nod, but we're not voting on this tonight anyways. Give me direction. Is it possible to go back and relook at it, look at what the site cost numbers were for the utilities and whatnot? You guys go through and see what's fair, you know, and maybe you can come back to us and say, well, we double checked this, and this is fair, and it's worth getting the grant money or not, or we may not want to. And then bring it back to us before, you know, obviously I'll bring it back before it's formally, before we would approve it. But, you know, in the next few weeks, if you could clarify a bunch of stuff and get communicate with the council members what you found, and then, you know, when you bring it back forward, so that.
Absolutely.
Does that make sense to you guys?
Yeah.
For
For
A
sure.
lot now, but maybe, you know, with some more information on it, could make an informed decision.
Yeah, Mayor,
That to be brought back.
I would feel much more comfortable making this decision if I knew there was more than one RFP. I was under the impression we had multiple bids, so.
The kit is,
Yeah.
sorry, the kit was not included in the RFP?
It is. That's the all-in price on that's a prefabricated building. But as time goes on, getting back one bid is becoming more and more common. Just like all of the other businesses, they're having trouble getting staff, and materials are an issue. The cost of materials, the lead time on materials is driving up costs.
Question, was it spec'd as a prefab unit?
Yes.
And maybe I missed something. Does it have to be a prefab unit?
No, it does not. I was going prefab to try to drive the cost down.
I would almost think that, depending on what the site work costs were, the utilities of it, shouldn't be that expensive of a building. So I don't know if we can relook at that. I know that would totally change the whole process and probably take a lot of time, wouldn't it? But, oh,
Tom, are the portables that were there, were those ADA compliant?
Yes.
Where do they sit on a slab today?
They
They're
are,
probably removed during the process right now, weren't they, during the construction?
yes, I had it removed, but it sits in the pavement, in the parking lot.
And so if we were to just pause and stay with the portables to the point in time where we maybe have materials, change in the materials costs, and we recover from some of these things to whatever extent that's going to be possible in the future, maybe just the portables are sufficient for the timing. We've gotten along for a while with that. If there's an accessible and reasonable place for them, without having to incur hundreds of thousands of dollars, I would propose that we contemplate at least measuring the option of staying with the portables for an extended period of time.
And I think that the only thing to that, you lose the grant.
Yeah, no, I understand.
But, to lose 100, but to waste 100, you don't want to do
Right,
that
that's-
either, or 200.
And
I want
Is
to,
your grant paying for the ridiculous costs of materials?
but again, I think if you guys could get us more information, because I'm just making up numbers, but let's say that utility part was $225,000 of it, then we could realize, but if it's $22,000 or 50, then we realize this is just crazy money to be spending.
I can gather that information.
That breakdown would be really important to us, Tom, and just as the mayor has said, to understand where those hard costs are coming in.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, and then if you guys can bring it back to us.
And the cost of the portable, isn't that, it's a lot a month. ADA compliant, yeah, because we've had them at the Milton
For
Country.
this, yeah, it's a different unit than what's at the club. It's a typical portable restroom you'd see at a construction site. It's $105 a month.
Not the air conditioning ones. Okay. I didn't know there were differences. There are.
On the door, it says anywhere but here.
Okay. All right, thank you, John.
Okay, thank you, Tom.
Okay. Tammy, if you would please call the next item, and I believe we moved public comment, correct?
We did, Mayor. Do you want to?
Okay, and we do have general
We
public
do,
comment.
we do, Mayor.
Okay, the next item is general public comment, and I appreciate you guys being patient. Public comment is a time for citizens to share information with the mayor and city council and to provide input and opinions on any matter that is not scheduled for its own public hearing during today's meeting. Each citizen who chooses to participate in public comment must complete a comment card and submit it to our city clerk prior to the agenda item being called. Now, obviously, if it's just general public comment, there's not an agenda item. Please remember that this is not a time to engage the mayor or members of city council in conversation. When your name is called, please come forward and speak your name and address at the beginning, for the record. You'll have 5 minutes for remarks, and the city encourage you to review the agenda, and if you wish to speak on it, bring your comment card to the clerk right now. So I will open up now for general public comment.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Morgan, welcome back. Did you decide that you would like to speak? Okay, yes, okay, so just, you had your comment. Thank you so much. I would then like Mayor to call Brent Beecham to the podium.
I wanted to make a comment tonight about the first presentation
Give me
item.
1 second. Would you just
Oh, sorry.
name and address for the record, please?
Brent Beecham, and I'm representing Market District Crabapple, which is at 12655 Birmingham Highway in Milton. Sorry. So I wanted to talk about the next item that's coming up, which is the agenda item 21301. I know that's the first presentation and you're not going to vote on it tonight, but I wanted to bring some comments up about which I think are critical to your deliberation when it comes time to vote on this item. Every meeting I ever go to, whether it's Roswell or Alfred, they always start, I grew up here and I've lived here longer than you have. I moved to Roswell in 1871. My family built our horse farm on Birmingham Road in 1982. It's the Shannondale Farm now. We built many homes out here, Providence Road, Doris Road, Coleman Road, et cetera. So we've been invested in the city of Milton long before it became Milton. And we came to Milton to invest our money and our investors' money in a project, Market District Crabapple. I've looked at over time how mixed-use developments come to be, or how certain areas become area districts of interest. My office was on Canton Street. Canton Street was a really small, tiny, very laid back, few restaurants. And it became over time a restaurant district. And how did that happen? You know, they had this Alive After 5 thing. People started showing up. There was an outside input that created that as a destination. And you see now it's a self-sustaining destination spot. One restaurant goes out, another one comes in. There's no problem filling up that. Alpharetta had the same situation where, you know, you had one street with 3 or 4 restaurants, nothing there. The city came in, they put in City Hall parking lot, put in the infrastructure in the library, and that was an impetus to bring new businesses to Alpharetta over time. What's the big driver in Alpharetta? Restaurants. The Roaring Socials, new, all these places that are really make it a destination. You don't go to a specific place necessarily in Alpharetta. You go there and park and say, hey, let's go put our name in a few restaurants and go look around. Alpharetta is a destination. Crabapple at this point in time has not been a destination. I live here and I think about, do I need to go for an anniversary dinner? I go to Milton's because that's a great place to go. Milton's a great place, but it's not something that's on the forefront. I'm not going to go to Crabapple tonight and walk around and figure out what's going on because there's really just not that much in terms of destination quality restaurants. So when we looked at locating in Crabapple, it was, we looked at all the things that you all put together, 2009 charrette, 2012 plan that showed what that was going to look like. 2017, there's a placemaking plan. They identified 105,000 square feet of retail and other type businesses, of which 50% were designated for full service restaurants, specialty food, and drinking establishments. So that's, I think you understand that to make this a successful town, you have to have those kinds of places. To me, and I look at this new proposal, the plan is to limit establishments that are limited service restaurants to closing at 11 p.m. where you let full service restaurants will stay open until 2 a.m. So Old Blind Dog, which I'm pretty certain that nobody's going there to eat dinner at 2 a.m. They're allowed to be open till 2 a.m. But we have a limited service restaurant we're going to open up, which he's going to speak after, Billy Allen, who wants to have a live music venue with good food, quality food, but it's a place that you gave him a license for 70/30. And he came with a set of rules that he understood that was going to allow him to stay to 2 a.m. Again, I don't know that anybody expects anybody's going to stay up every night to 2 a.m., but the ability to be able to do that was part of his business plan, and to close at 11 o'clock is going to highly impact his business. In fact, I don't know this for a fact, but if I were him, I'd be thinking twice about opening, because if he's not going to be successful, then how's that going to, why would he continue to invest into a project? And frankly, I think this to become a destination for Crabapple, to have an establishment like that, again, we looked around town, he's one of the most successful establishment owners from Buckhead, Atlanta, longtime guy. We brought him because we knew he would bring quality to this area. And he would draw people who in the past would drive past Crabapple Corners and keep on going to Alpharetta or go to Roswell to Canton Street. They're going to come here at night, and they're going to go to his club and listen to live music. You're going to have good quality craft drinks. He's going to have a good menu, and they're going to stay there. If he has to close early, but the restaurants can stay up until 2 a.m., I don't see the logic in that. And it's critical for our business, and I believe for others, to bring the restaurants from Buckhead, which he's helping me bring. They're going to need to know that there's that they're going to be drawn to this area specifically, and I believe Billy Allen will do that. Just the last comment is, if he spent all this time and effort and came with a set of rules, and those rules can be changed arbitrarily after he's already been given a license, then how can any business come to this city and expect that if it's written in the rules, that they can build their business plan around that? If they can change that quickly, then I don't see how anybody would come and invest this kind of money. Thank you.
Thank you. Please call the next speaker.
I'd like to invite Mr. Billy Allen to the podium, please.
Hi, I'm Billy Allen. I'm here in reference to the address of 12655 Birmingham Highway, also known as 3000 Heritage Walk. I am Billy Allen. I'm the guy on the face on the banner. I have been so excited to be a part of this. I've spent my life in this business. I remember telling my father I wasn't going to law school. That was a real slap in the mouth for him. But I spent 37 years and I've had 16 other successful venues, none of which have I ever been cited, none of which have I ever had a tax implication, none of which have I ever done anything but build and draw to the community that I so chose. And I've done various types of entertainment venues. This one we carefully planned and designed to cater to this cherry-picked apple pie community, which I refer to it as fondly. All the people that I've met, the thousands, over 1,000 people have supported me on Nextdoor, on Facebook, on all these ads, telling me they can't wait to be entertained. They look forward to late night breakfast on Friday and Saturday, live brunch on Saturday afternoon. The support is immense. I could stand here and read it all to you, but it's not necessary. You can look it up on Nextdoor for yourself. But again, I'm very concerned now. My wife and I have done this successfully together for 37 years. And I've never made an enemy. I've never made a public enemy. I'm a consultant right now with the city of Atlanta as to what to do with what has so poorly happened to that poor city and its residents of Buckhead. You know, I don't come here with neon lights and pool tables. I come here with a 27-year-old, very excited chef who was trained out of Barnsley Gardens, who I happened to coach when I was listening to those Little League kids. I spent 6 years going 72-8, and my last win was against Milton, unfortunately, in 2012 to go to the state football championship. Your tailback was Peyton Barber, who tomorrow night or Monday will run for the Oakland Raiders. I coached him for 6 years. I've contributed to communities, fundraising, children, dogs, homeless shelters, and my opportunity up here is to be a destination location, very much more important than myself. I have been asked by the Foley Group and the Beechams to help select carefully the people that line the 5 buildings that they're going to build in hospitality. I have successfully brought 3 that are going to just wow Milton. I mean, wow you with a beautiful steakhouse and a beautiful Asian infused rooftop for a family that I've known for 30 years that does it so exquisitely well. A Mediterranean restaurant's coming, these things. And it's not easy to get them without a little bit of vision. So the Market District Group agreed to recirculate, recircle the way that they get these people up here. And so far, our recipe's working. Now, for me, I'm the Red Roof Inn guy. I'm the guy that says, hey, I'll leave the light on for you. Okay, when you come off the airport at 11:30, you didn't get any dinner, your kids are home, whatever, you want to stop, have something to eat, have something to drink, I'm your guy. The reason that I initially asked for the 70-30, which I was unanimously voted in and given the license to, the reason I did that was because I understand a constraint of 50-50.
1 minute.
And I am certainly not Milton's. You know, that general manager has known me for 20 years. He works right next door. You can ask him about me all day long. But what I bring you is a secure amount of tax dollars. Security in knowing that I'm not going to do anything to embarrass you ever or myself, nor have I ever in my lifetime in this business. I'll bring you a crooner, a 33-year-old girl singing at dinner on a Tuesday night, okay, with a 14-year-old virtuoso piano player in a tuxedo who's got to be home by 9:30. Okay, yeah, this is the truth. They're fabulous. I have singer-songwriters. I have been singing for 40 years myself. I've got a band that consists of members of Wet Willie and Starbuck, and we do 4 decades worth of music that you request and you want to hear. The piano players are fabulous. Their singing components are fabulous. They don't just sit and play like them all. They entertain. Hey, Paul, how are you? Nice to see you today. Hey, Joe, nice to see you too. Hello, Ken, nice to see you. Come on in, have a seat, have something to eat, have something to drink. I'm not saying that I won't sell more food. I'm just saying that my hours and my business plan were approved, okay? And I thought that I was open arm welcome to come in, and now I get a friendly phone call from Miss Bernadette saying, well, you know, would you consider this or that? And if I do, my business plan sinks. I can't afford the entertainment that you want.
Time has expired.
Okay, I can't. So I urge you to think about this as hard as you can. If you didn't want anyone else to have what I have, that's okay with me too. You know, I'd surely appreciate that. And, you know, we have turned away, as I leave you, and thank you for your time generously. We've turned away people that didn't fit your mold or fit mine or anyone else's. We've already turned away. He could have leased tons of space, but we said, no, thank you. So I thank you for your time. Please give it careful consideration, and I'll see you on the 18th. I appreciate you very much.
Thank you. Hey, Tammy, please call the next speaker.
Mayor, that concludes the general public comments. I have more, but those are other items. Yes, sir.
Okay, so we'll close public comment. Thank you. We'll move on. Let's see, we have no,
First presentation, Mayor.
so we'll move on to first presentation.
That item, Mayor, is consideration of an ordinance to amend Chapter 4 and Appendix A of the Milton Code of Ordinances, alcoholic beverages, to update various sections to clarify intent. It's agenda item number 21301. Assistant City Manager, Ms. Bernadette Harville.
Okay.
It's just presentation.
Yeah,
Our apologies.
We'll open up for a motion on the first presentation.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve agenda item number 21-301.
Okay, do I have a second? Second. All right, I have a motion from Councilmember Bentley with a second from Councilmember Jameson. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous. Okay, we have no items under a public hearing, zoning agenda, or unfinished business. So if Tammy, you'll please call the first new business item.
Mayor, that first item is consideration of a resolution to enact a moratorium for 120 days on the acceptance of alcohol applications for craft beer and/or wine markets, limited tap establishments, and limited service restaurants in the city of Milton. It's agenda item number 21302. Assistant City Manager Bernadette Harville.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Before you tonight is a moratorium related to the acceptance of new alcohol applications for craft beer and/or wine markets, limited tap establishments, and limited service restaurants. On September 20th, we had an in-depth discussion regarding recommended updates to Chapter 4, alcoholic beverages. During that discussion, Council mentioned interest in finding a way to consider some of the newer concepts that we have been seeing that do not currently qualify as for the traditional 50-50 eating establishment without having to change Chapter 4 each time. Community development staff suggested potentially utilizing the warrant process as a tool to accomplish this, as the process to implement these changes in Chapter 64 will take time, including advertising and conducting a community zoning information meeting and a planning commission meeting. Staff has put together this resolution to place a moratorium on new applications for such establishments while we go through that process. Should you approve this moratorium, it will not impact renewals for currently licensed businesses or those who have already been working with staff on their alcohol applications prior to this evening. Should you choose not to approve this moratorium, businesses who have not applied to date will be allowed to do so while staff works over the next few months to make changes to Chapter 64. And I'll be happy to answer any questions for you.
First off, Brendan, just to clarify, so if this moratorium is passed, it does not affect anybody that's existing in the process or has applied.
That's correct, sir. We have a list of businesses that we have been working with for some time now, and they would not be included in this.
And also, how about just I know if it comes to a regular restaurant does that have any effect to that?
Anyone else who's not called out specifically and qualifies under any of the other types would be allowed to move on in the process while we work on this.
Okay. All right. Anybody? Any questions or anything? Okay, Joe.
So Bernadette, the in-flight applications that we have right now, we're confident we can process those and provide them with some kind of results. I think we heard at the last meeting about some people's frustration related to feeling like they're in purgatory because we keep working to better things, but it means delays on their side. How does this not further delay the process they're going through?
So currently, 2 of the 4 open applications are now in compliance according to the last updates you approved. So they're moving forward. They're just getting their own concepts and understanding exactly which licenses how they want to structure it. So there should be before you soon. The other one that has had some discussions with you is still working to fit the model as it stands. So this won't change that. They would still be able to apply under that 60/40 or anything else they could come up with in that concept area that would conform with some of the other licenses. So they're okay to move on. And then the last one, I believe, that has the concern is outside of any of this, which is our brewery. That is separate from any of these discussions and working with legal diligently each day to try to figure out how we can find that fit their concept.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay. And Ken, you're good with all that?
Everything Ms. Harville said, yes.
Licenses already granted and all.
But yeah, this is the hard stop for applications. If they've already tendered an application, they're in process, they keep going. If they've got a permit already, they keep going. This is only new stuff.
Anybody else? I'll open up for motion. I'm sorry.
Mayor.
We have public comment.
We do. We have 2. Mayor, I'd like to invite Mr. John Zaworski to the podium for his comment.
Evening. My name is John Zaworski. I'm a Milton resident and here to discuss property I'm an owner on 12875 Arnold Mill Road in the city of Milton, obviously. It was purchased by my family in 1982. It's about 10.5 acres. And I'm here to kind of discuss some concerns about the treatment of our property in the 2040 comp plan.
You know,
Mayor,
yeah, we're just off on the.
My apology, he put the wrong number down. I thought.
No worries. We may, if you don't mind, when we move to the next agenda item, later come back. Perfect. Thank you.
The next one then is Mr. Brent Beecham for the moratorium. Would you like to continue? Okay. Okay.
I'll
Mayor, that
close the public
concludes.
comment on this item and open up for a motion.
All right, Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve agenda item number 21-302.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion for approval from Councilmember Jameson, a second from Councilmember Moore. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
That's unanimous. Okay. Now, Kim, if you please call the next item.
The next item is consideration of a resolution adopting the City of Milton 2040 Comprehensive Plan. It's agenda item number 21303. Mr. Robert Buscemi, Community Development Director.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. We're here before you tonight to request the council's vote to adopt the 2040 City of Milton Comprehensive Plan update. Been a long journey, and I want to kind of pull the council up, back up to about 80,000 feet if I can, bring you way up. It's a comprehensive plan. We're looking at what the city should be 20 years, in the next 20 years. That's a big cycle. Most of us probably won't be here in 20 years. But the vision of what the city should be where it has been and where it's going was all factored into this plan. And it has received DCA and ARC approval. So Jackie's going to do a short presentation just to kind of give you a brief remembrance of the journey. The journey has been quite a journey. A lot of people. There's a lot of people that we need to bring and give credit to, because this is not something that any one person has done. I mean, it's citizens and staff and council. It's just been really a collective effort. And I think it shows the strength of Milton, the citizens of Milton, and the kind of input that we had from the citizens and the CPAC board. And everybody really contributed. So I just want to give you a quick recap of where we've been. But at the end, we will need a vote to adopt a plan. Okay, Jackie, want to come up and just give it?
Mayor and council. This is really an exciting and proud time for the city of Milton. Finally, we are adopting Comprehensive Plan 2040. Allow me to take you back in time. About this time last year, the planning process was underway. I'd like to acknowledge our former principal planner, Michelle Ross McIntosh, who spearheaded, she's right now in the audience, who spearheaded the effort. Michelle, thank you for leading the early stages of planning process. Laura Richter, our partner and consultant from TSW, is also here tonight. Laura, you lend your leadership and expertise on comprehensive planning. CPAC and steering committees were also formed. Some of the members are here tonight. Members are passionate about ensuring a bright future for Milton and the fulfillment of the city's vision. So these groups are committed to accomplishing a goal, and I'm fortunate to have worked with them in the last 6 months and witnessed an exemplary kind of leadership, teamwork, and unity. So as I said earlier, planning process begun, public kickoff meeting. We have also public engagements. Transmittal of the plan to DCA and ARC happened 2 months ago, and then tonight is the adoption of the comprehensive plan. As mentioned earlier, I'd like to highlight our community engagement process. We know that excellent comprehensive planning requires the involvement of the community. The level of community engagement involved in this planning process is rigorous and collaborative. We ensure that community members are involved every step of the way. There are numerous opportunities available for collaboration to gather the public's input. So like, for example, we have 8 CPAC work sessions, 2 virtual public workshops, 2 pop-up events, 3 education sessions, and a draft plan open house. This shows that our comprehensive plan entails a highly engaging process. We establish also new forms of engagement and various participation techniques to gather feedback from the community, such as online surveys, educational forums, informative videos, virtual meetings, and in-person public comment events. I'd like to thank our communications department, who ensure that any events or news related to ComPlan will relate to the public. We utilize social media platforms such as Facebook. We also have our website where we publish our meetings, and at the same time, the newspaper to inform our citizens of the development of the comprehensive plan. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank various stakeholders for their involvement in all phases of the creation of the comprehensive plan, from inception to its completion. So first, our citizens for sharing their stories, feedback, and their time to review the plan. The people of Milton are the reasons why we public servants are dedicated to making Milton a better place. Laura Richter, you and your team at TSW are instrumental to the success of Milton's comprehensive plan. You demonstrated dedication, hard work, and leadership. You're expert on this field, and I've learned a lot from you. Actually, everyone from you. CPAC team, for the countless hours they devoted to this project, their commitment to accomplishing this project is highly commendable. Many hours of deliberations and interaction took place in this chamber. Please know that your time, insights, and recommendations are appreciated. Of course, the leadership of Todd Chernick, who is the chair of CPAC, who also led the planning and development of the comp plan. He gave us direction and guidance to the team. Thank you for your valuable time, knowledge, and leadership that you contributed. You embodied what leadership is about. You really, truly led by example. Thank you. The city administrators, we have Steve, Stacy, Bernadette, also Bob, our director, community director, development director. You kept us motivated and inspires us to keep going. And of course, to see council members, Paul Moore and Laura Bentley, who joined steering committee and the CPAC committee. You both are very supportive and encouraging and dedicated to accomplishing this project. And thank you so much. And lastly, the members of the steering committee, the city staff for helping with the logistics, technology needs, advertising, and for helping the team get to the finish line. Thank you. So it has been a year-long process indeed. It's a long journey. The level of commitment, incredible engagement, valuable insights, and recommendations from stakeholders finally produce an extraordinary document. So what's next for us? We're going to implement the projects as outlined in the short-term work program. The adoption of the plan is just part one of our story. We still have work to do. And this time our focus will be the implementation of the short-term work program. We are planning to create a calendar, an assignment for a team or a staff member. That's going to be our next step. Our visions are clear. But before that, I'd like to share the total projects of our short-term work program. 27 of those projects is associated with land use, 13 for economic development, 23 for transportation, 22 for sustainability, natural and cultural resources, and 14 for placemaking and branding. So that's what we're going to do after the adoption of this plan. We make sure that we have a project schedule and ensure that all of these projects will be accomplished in the next maybe 5 years. Because our visions are clear, we want to preserve rural heritage, promote a high quality of life, build a strong sense of community, and be the best place to call home. And that's it. Thank you, and we will try our best turning our visions into reality for future generations. And if you have any questions, we have Ms. Laura Richter here to answer questions you may have.
Okay, do we have any questions? Laura?
I just have a couple comments. So thank you so much for, I can't think of any staff member that didn't have a hand in this at some point. But one of the things that I think we need to remember is when we first kicked this off, we learned a lot because we started to, we forgot what our foundation was in the city. And we got a lot of information about how much demand there is for folks to come here and live. And the most important thing is, I mean, I had the privilege of serving on this committee and I really enjoyed it, but we must never forget why Milton is special and how we got here. The foundation of our community is high standards. And we have done a great job on land use, and we've held the line. And so part of our learning process was to remember that and not forget it, that we didn't build to demand. We have a land use policy that is very predictable, and our property owners love that because they invest a great deal in our community. So I was very, even though the beginning of this process was a little bit rough, and I just want the whole room to know that if you want Todd Chernick to do anything for you, just take him to Dunkin' Donuts. Because all he needs is a donut. But Todd was great, but also I have to credit Ron Gilbert for holding this team to that high standard and helping the CPAC to remember what has kept Milton special. So I'm extremely proud of everyone that had a hand in this and that contributed to that. I can't wait to get started in the next month of prioritizing for 2022 what we're going to get started on. Can't wait to do it. So thank you.
Thanks, Joe. I would just echo what Councilmember Bentley has just shared. It was a remarkable process that we went through. As Laura said, every individual who touched this project, and there were many across the board, rose to a height of, I think, heretofore unseen contribution, because we were in trouble in the beginning. We seemed to have lost our way. But through some dedication and leadership of our consulting team, our city manager's leadership, some key tutelage from Todd Chernick and Ron Gilbert, and many others that I won't name this evening, we were able to rise like a phoenix from the fire and have now delivered, I think, a tremendous product. I think it is in keeping with where Milton has intended to go, but also prepared us for the next stage of Milton. There was a lot of years in our comprehensive plan where we were building the foundation of what we were going to be. And now we've become some of those things. We're at an interesting point in our career as a new city where we can now become some of the things that you want to be next that are more aspirational. We've put some of those core cornerstones in place. But I think to touch on a key point that Laura just said is the vision here is not necessarily the city's vision, meaning the people that you see around this room. It's been the vision of our community that has driven this. All too often, you talk about market demand, and we heard a presentation from a consulting team, as a matter of fact, that contributed to that. And we said, you know what, a lot of that is really nice information, but it's absolutely not Milton. And we took the best of what he had to offer and massaged it and turned it into what is really the citizen-centric vision for what Milton is going to be. So we're not necessarily market-driven, we're Milton citizen-driven. And I look forward to those things being realized with the tremendous work that you guys have put forward on all of our behalf. And I can't thank you enough for having a chance to be a part of it. I was very, very honored to have a chance to play a piece in that. Thank you.
Anybody else? Any questions or comments right now? I'll go ahead and take public comment and then we can.
Thank you, Mayor. We have two. Mr. John Zaworski, if you would like to come back up to the podium, please.
All right, ready for me now here. Like I said, my name is John Zaworski, Milton resident, one of the property owners of 12875 Arnold Mill Road, property my family's owned for going on 40 years. And I have some concerns, we do, along with some of the adjoining property owners, about how our properties are treated in this 2040 comp plan. And just kind of to go back a little bit on some history, since 2016 or 2006, since the city was established, we've been engaged, in the future zoning development and use of our property. One of those big moments was the 2014 visioning study, which we were heavily engaged in and heavily involved in. And what kind of came out of that study was a couple commercial nodes that were identified. One of them being the specific name of it, the area around Arnold Mill and Cox Road, which our property is located in. Kind of the conclusion of that report was that node should have a mix of uses, including neighborhood serving retail, restaurant, office, live, work, residential, education. 2015, the form-based code was drafted by the city. Community development staff, consultants, it was officially proposed and published for public comment. That prescribed T4 for that node. 2030 comprehensive plan stated the Arnold Mill character area. These are areas appropriate for non-residential development in the future. Non-residential development small separate areas along Arnold Mill Road to create employment opportunities in the western portion of the community. This node has been identified. It's always been commercial in character. It's been acknowledged by, land use policy documents, city officials for a significant amount of time as a commercial node. And it's actually only become more commercial in recent years. The city purchased the athletic fields. There was the approval of a 23,000 square foot activity center directly across the street from the node. The DOT has slated the Arnold Mill to be widened to 4 lanes. So the history of the property has always been commercial. It's been identified as commercial. It's been discussed as commercial. And so it was somewhat surprising to see the property now identified on the future land use map as AEE, which is, as you'll know, agricultural, equestrian estate, which is, acre lots, typically larger, 3-acre tracts, horse farms, and it's just not in keeping with the history of the property, with significant amount of work that would involve in these studies, just like these studies that's currently, took place, staff, community involvement, to arrive at these conclusions that this is a commercial node and kind of would be treated as such. And so I guess our concern is that now it is not being identified that way. And so we've engaged with some folks, with some city officials, and offered some comments and edits. And to date, these suggestions and edits have not kind of been adopted. And really, I'm here just to kind of ask the council to either adopt some of these edits that we've suggested, or delay this vote to a point where we can have some time to delay to the next meeting, to have additional time to kind of discuss this specific node, how it's identified, what specific language edits can be made within the comp plan to kind of, be a better representation of how this property has been treated, this corridor has been treated for, the last 8 years. And
1 minute.
3 different studies. It's just a little concerning. I'm hearing talking about 2040. This is kind of what we want to see the vision in 2040 of properties in Milton, and discussions we've had over this past 7-10 years. The vision of this location, the vision of this corridor is not AEE. So there's just a little bit of a disconnect there, and I don't think, given the history of the property, given the current history of the property, Roswell is adopting a mixed-use zoning directly across the street. It's not gone more residential. It's not gone more rural. It's been identified as commercial for a long-standing period of time on multiple studies, multiple documents, approved documents, and then now it's not. And so here we kind of are obviously concerned with that. Because I think a lot of people agree here that that's not the nature of that stretch of
Time expired.
of road, Arnold Mill, Cox Road. It's just commercial in nature, and that's been identified and well documented. And so there's obviously some concerns of how it's treated in this 2040 plan.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
Amy, please call the next speaker.
I'd like to next invite Mr. Ben Thorpe to the podium, please.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Mayor and council and staff, for your time. I'm speaking on a similar issue. I actually speak on behalf of my mother, who has an ownership interest in 12895 and 12915 Arnold Mill Road, which is at the intersection of Cox Road and Arnold Mill Road, the same piece that Mr. Jaworski was just talking about.
Excuse me, Tim. Is it Thorpe?
Yes, my last name is
just
Thorpe.
State that for the record.
Sure, absolutely. My name is Ben Thorpe. I'm speaking on behalf of my mom, Dr. Barbara Williams, who has that ownership interest in that property. And I'll take a slightly different angle than Mr. Jaworski took, which is though that history I think is very helpful to understanding where the concerns of, and I'll just speak for my mom, us as property owners come from, which is that we understand that this comprehensive plan is about many, many things and is a huge collaborative effort. The document alone requires a huge amount of collaborative work, and I want to acknowledge that and all the work that goes into that by staff, citizens, council, mayor, et cetera. This is a tiny piece of that puzzle, but from our perspective, an important one. And what matters to us at this time is to have a clear understanding of what it is that's being adopted means for us as individual landowners, right? So the future land use plan identifies various zones as retail and services, for example, or agriculture, for example. But I don't think necessarily renders a final determination about every individual property. I think we're all sort of on the same page about that. And so to have the council or the staff speak to us in a way that explains that and says that this plan isn't designed to impose a constraint or a restraint that is final or in perpetuity on your property and the potential use of your property, I think would be very helpful for us, right? Because there's a degree to which I think we have been talking past each other, right? And we are maybe assuming too much from the way this is spoken about in the comprehensive plan. And in reality, we still have a lot of room to cooperate and to work with the city. Now, that's my hope, right? So that's the optimistic tone. If that's not the case, to be honest, it would be helpful to understand that as well, right? So if the effect of the future land use plan is to constrain the use of the property going forward in a final or determined way, that's also helpful to understand and to have clearly stated. And so, while I agree with Mr. Jaworski, there's certainly an opportunity to have more discussion and to edit or alter the comprehensive plan. I'm not over optimistic about that. I understand how much work has gone into this, and I know that a vote is likely to happen tonight. That said, I think the next set of communications to the property owners, and we may not be the only ones that feel similarly affected here, would be helpful to help us understand what the effect of the final land use determination that appears in the comprehensive plan is, and more than that, how we can have a productive dialogue going forward, right? How we can talk about if there are one or two nodes within the Arnold Mill plan that would be appropriate for non-residential use, how do we participate in that discussion? How do we have a productive involvement in that discussion? And so that's really the impetus of my commenting at all, right? There is this document. I believe this document is likely to be approved. It reflects a tremendous amount of work. Where we go from the document, I think is what I'm trying to speak to tonight, certainly what my mom as a property owner in that corridor is concerned with. And to the extent I can be helpful or have further conversations with any of you or with any staff about that, I really welcome the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Do we have any other?
That concludes the comments, Mayor.
Close the public comment. Laura, do you have a?
Yeah, I just want to make another comment. So the comp plan is the first step in creating a work program item. I can say for sure that in the comp plan is a work program item for a small area plan for the Arnold Mill area. So, and a small area plan is when you really dive into the details of notifying the adjacent property owners. That means I was able to participate in a similar plan for the Cambridge area. So it is a step in the process of considering a change. So, but everything goes before council. Council can determine whether they will adhere to the comp plan or they will not. So I guess I just wanted to clarify some of the process, as it relates to planning in the comp plan, and then small area plans. They are identified in the comp plan, and then those plans can be approved or upheld by council, whatever council is in place then or not. So I hope that helps clarify some of where we are in the planning process and how it goes to implementation.
Okay.
Peyton was next.
Yeah, just to follow up on Laura's point, Steve, could you explain maybe what we would expect out of the small work programs and a timeline or something kind of like that, and the prioritization?
So the Arnold Mills Small Area Plan is actually listed as land use number one. It's the first one listed in there. And with the anticipation that you would look at this within, I believe, if my recollection is correct, either 22 or 23. Fortunately, I'll be before you 1 week from today, should this be adopted. I'll be before you anyway, talking about our strategic plan. And should this be adopted, I'll also be talking about opportunities to start funneling some of those short-term work plans into the next quarter for the strategic plan. So it's at that time, you as a council will prioritize when we'll start looking at those. As far as what a small area plan does, I think I know what it does, but I'm never going to be as eloquent as Bob may be in this. So I may ask Bob to come up for that if that's all right.
So with a small area plan, what we're going to do is we're going to we're doing everything in-house. We're not going out with any consultants. So staff will start to look at the corridor, do some studies. There's been a lot of change to that corridor since the last plan. The last plan I was here for was in 2014. And since then, that corridor has significantly changed. There's been development, there's been water lines been brought in. They didn't even have water back then. It doesn't have any sewer in that area. So there's things that haven't changed and there's a lot that has changed. But so with the small area plan, we're going to sit down, we're going to study it and go through that whole cycle that we did the last time all over again. I mean, we could look back at things that were studied prior, but I don't really want to tell the council that we're just going to take those and run with them, because I think there's been significant change in that corridor that staff really needs to analyze. And then we bring back recommendations to council on what we think it should be. And then if council thinks that those recommendations are good, we start to adopt codes, like the form-based code for that area, to start to show how we implement that zoning in those areas.
Carol?
So, as you know, we all participated last week with this gentleman, Mr. Swazorski, pronounce that correctly, Mr. Mitnick, and Mr. Thorpe, your mother. It was very nice to speak with her about this subject. And to crystallize it, the change in language that we're not carrying forth prior history of 2014, 15 is of concern to the property owners, because whether that will tilt the scales one way or another, perhaps disadvantageously to the property owners, is at issue. So, you know, I can appreciate we could pick through the comp plan and find a lot of inconsistencies or other things, and that could delay moving forward on the study. So I understand that. But my question is there any penalty in the fact that that area was characterized a different way than it currently is? Is there any penalty going into the study that there might be a prejudiced eye in that we have forgotten history back in 2014, what the Planning Commission and two bodies of the Planning Commission had?
Yeah, I would say that there is not. So what happens is I can't sit here before you tonight and say, yes, we're going to, you know, what they've done before will even have an impact on what it will look like, because without doing the study, we really don't have any idea how that study is going to end up and what recommendations we're going to bring forth. It might look similar, it might not, but I will assure the landowners and the council that this council, future councils, whatever is on that land use map, if we do a study and the council chooses to adopt or modify that land use, they have the ability to do so. So it would not inhibit this council or future councils from changing that land use map.
So Bob, based on the 2014 2014 plan, whatever the previous plan was, because I was thinking it was later than that, but maybe you're right. Is it a true statement that that particular area was characterized differently than it is in the plan that we're getting ready to vote on?
There was a visionary study, and there was some form-based code texts that were recommended. And the council, and it was 2015, we brought that to council. And at that time, the council chose not to adopt it and to just table it indefinitely was the outcome of that meeting. So, yeah.
I guess let me rephrase my question. If we went to a comprehensive land plan that was already approved by the council, the properties that we've been talking about, what are they, what does the future use look like for those properties?
Hey, Bob, can I jump in a second? Would that be
Yeah,
all
go
right?
ahead, jump in. I mean,
So I don't want to confuse the Arnold Mill visioning study with the comprehensive plan. Our comprehensive plan never incorporated the 2014 visioning study. While it's mentioned in it, we've never changed our future land use map to indicate any changes associated with what came out of the visioning study. The visioning study was done in 2014. I was not here for that, but I was here for the 2015 update for the comprehensive plan, at which time the CPAC looked at all of the plans, just like we did this time, to determine, okay, what changes should be made in this 2015 update. At that time, the future land use map, at least as far as Arnold Mill is concerned, did not change. And now subsequently in this review now, it still did not change. So there is no change in the comprehensive plan. The 2014 plan is what it was a visioning plan like we've done in many other areas, but the council chose in 2015 not to implement via zoning, which is your planning tool to be able to change an area, to change Arnold Mill. You opted not to. However, working with our CPAC this time around, they still voiced a very strong desire to re-examine what Arnold Mill could be, but through a lens that's appropriate in 2021. Not necessarily 2014. Whether that ends up being the same, that will be up to whatever comes out of the visioning study and ultimately the council. But nothing is really changing as it pertains to the comprehensive plan.
That's a really important clarification.
Okay. I just, because what you said just made me think that, you know, we're going to approve something tonight that I didn't want to potentially change something that we're just going to revisit and then vote to change again. In other words, it seemed like we were creating a conflict for ourselves, but if that's not the case, then I'm okay with that. My secondary concern is really more about our citizens, and that is, you know, if they went to sleep one night thinking that an appropriate use of their property is one thing, and they wake up the next day and all of a sudden all that's changed, and they didn't really get to voice their proper opinion on how that could change. I just, you know, worry about that kind of thing. But that's okay. All right, let's keep going.
I'm sorry.
Okay, yeah, first off, I want to thank everybody that was involved from, you know, our CPAC, staff, council members, citizens, property owners, everybody. I guess, is it safe to say, Bob, the comprehensive plan is a roadmap to get us from point A to point B, a destination.
yes.
But that's not necessarily to say if it's a 3,000-mile road trip, we may pull off at some small town to get gas and decide to, you know, stay here an extra night and visit this and explore and whatnot. So my concern is the same thing as Laura and as Joe's different points is, you know, because I know, you know, over the past years, that's always the thought process that I've had and heard everybody talking about. That was a corridor and a node that was, you know, between Crabapple there, you know, Birmingham. That was a node or a commercial area or whatnot. So that's my concern too. I didn't want to totally change, but I guess what you're saying, and Ken and Steve, that the overall plan, if approved, didn't necessarily change that area, but nothing was we did not adopt anything different in the past in 2014, 15.
Right.
But with a vision study and the property owners involved and citizens, we can come up with some changes, or that area can be defined differently or.
Well, the CPAC did identify it again, to be eligible to, have staff look at it, to do another small area plan for that corridor. So I thought that was, they said, look, a lot of things have changed over the years. We realized that there was a plan prior, but it was never adopted. Why don't we look at it again? Let's see what it is. Now, I just don't want to, I can't stand here before you tonight and say, okay, without studying it, yeah, we're going to go back to the old way, or yeah, it's going to be retail, or, it's going to be, commercial nodes. I mean, we're going to restudy it and give staff the opportunity to do what CPAC has directed us to do, which is go back, do the plan. We'll come back with recommendations. We'll show you illustrations. We'll have more community involvement. I don't know if other landowners have changed over the years. Maybe they have, maybe they have not. We'll reach out to everybody on the corridor. We'll see what makes sense for that corridor. Personally, I think it's a good corridor to look at. So I was in full agreement with CPAC to reanalyze that corridor and see what we could do with it. But without doing it, it would be difficult. But I do want to, the council can change land use. There were no land use changes proposed in this comp plan update. So
Question, just.
if we needed to do it in the future, yes, the council would be able to do it.
I don't want to put Sarah on the spot back there, but, it was mentioned tonight about DOT widening, making that a 4-lane highway. Do we, of course, 20 years ago, I was told it was 10 years, then 10 years went by and said another 10 years and all that. But is there any, Sarah, do you have any update of when, what DOT's schedule is on that or plan?
The latest date is 2037.
It's another 20 years. Sorry.
All right.
Okay.
It's another 20 years.
Okay, thank you.
That's a great example of some of the things that come into play in this consideration. If you think about just some of the remarkable things that are likely or have happened or likely going to happen. Number one is the continuous moving of the target from Fulton County or the Georgia Department of Transportation on that road widening, where there's been conversation more recently about what's going to happen with the waste management landfill that could comprehensively change some of the use patterns of some of the land over there, depending upon what the outcome of that is. If you look at what's happening in today's global economy about how we're using fossil fuel versus electric fuel and other solutions in the future. Gas stations and things that may have been contemplated in the last several studies may be something very different in the next couple of years. So I think it's great that we didn't take any significant change action in this comprehensive plan. We've set the stage for a fresh review of that, and I look forward to being a part of that.
Yeah.
And just a quick, so we keep using the words visioning and small area plan. It's the same thing. And so we, in the comp plan, decided to update that. And when we do that, because it is in there, and I'm sure we will, you would give notification to the property owners and the stakeholders as
Absolutely.
So that's, I hear you, and that's very important to us too, to make sure that the stakeholders are involved in this area plan, specific to Arnold Mill, which has been supported in the comp plan.
The current landowners that would be affected and the city at large, citizens at large, they get all the impact. Get input from the city at large and see what the city thinks. We'd be doing a lot of advertisement that way and engagement, getting people involved, showing them presentations, what things could look like, visions, how things would be built out. It's not an easy corridor because it doesn't have any, real sewer base to it. So it's going to have some limitations with that. So we got to really look at it and see what we can do to that corridor if we want to enhance it or not. But until we go through the study, it's a little difficult for me to really give you any conclusive evidence on what I think it should be tonight. I'd like to go through that study and really show the council what we came up with, what it looks like. How is it going to get affected, you know?
Okay, I think, but what I'm hearing some question on, there is an opportunity for study moving forward and whatnot on that. So, okay. I think I closed the public comment. So, any other questions, staff, or comments from council before I open up for a motion? Okay.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the resolution adopting the City of Milton's 2040 Comprehensive Land Use Plan.
Second?
Okay, I have a motion from Councilmember Bentley with a second from Councilmember Moore. Again, before I call the vote, I do want to take the opportunity to not only thank the citizens that were involved with the committee. Thank you for your effort, obviously, and time, and our staff and our staff here in Milton and our former staff here. Thank you all for everything, Michelle and all. So we appreciate all the hard work, and again, that goes to everybody. And with that, I'll ask all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
That's unanimous. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. All right, if our city clerk will please call the next item.
Mayor, our next item is consideration of a resolution adopting the capital improvements element, the CIE 2021 annual update relating to the city's impact fee program. Agenda item number 21304, Community Development Director, Mr. Bob Buscemi.
Good evening, Mayor and Council again. The CIE Annual Update 2021 was transmitted to ARC and DCA for their review back in August. Just like the comprehensive plan, these agencies also determined that the CIE update for the city of Milton adequately addressed the development impact fee compliance requirements. That's a good thing. That means we're spending our impact fee money correctly. And that's really what the annual CIE update is telling us. And it gets reviewed by DCA and ARC to make sure that we are doing that, and we are in full compliance, and they think we're doing a great job with that. So we're going to need another vote tonight to adopt that annual update.
Are there any questions for Bob on that? Sure. Yeah. Sure. All right. Thank you, Bob. Well, at this point, I will ask for a motion.
Mayor, I move that we approve a resolution adopting the capital improvements element CIE 2021 annual update, agenda item number 21-304.
Second.
I have a motion from Councilmember Longoria and a second from Councilmember Bentley. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
That's unanimous.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Bob. And you know what, I want to make sure, do we have any public comment on that?
We do not, sir.
So close out the public comment on that. Tammy, if you'll please call the next item.
The next item is consideration of a resolution of the City of Milton authorizing a pre-application for a Georgia Outdoor Stewardship Program grant with the Department of Natural Resources. It is agenda item number 21305, Parks and Recreation Manager, Mr. Tom McElveen.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. What I have for your consideration is a resolution to authorize city staff to complete the pre-application for the 2021 Georgia Outdoor Stewardship Program grant. This grant program is funded by the state and administered through the Department of Natural Resources. A percentage of sales tax on outdoor sporting goods funds the program. Staff is recommending that, if approved, we utilize the Georgia Outdoor Stewardship Program to fund the future phases of the former Milton Country Club trails, hydrology, and land management plan. This grant will support projects up to $3 million. For pre-application scoring, allocation of points is based on the percentage of match. A 50% match, it awards the highest possible points. Staff is recommending matching that 50% to take advantage of the most possible points. This match could come from a variety of sources, depending on funding received from the state, T-SPLOST, and other grants as highlighted earlier in Sarah Leader's presentation. This identified project includes work that we already intend to do. The grant will help support it financially. Again, this resolution is simply authorizing staff to pursue the grant and complete the pre-application. Any official approval from the grant will come in a future date in 2022. Any questions?
Okay, any questions? All right, do we have any public comment?
We do not, Mayor.
Close the public hearing on that and open up for a motion.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve agenda item number 21-305.
Second?
Okay, I have a motion for approval from Councilmember Bentley with a second from Councilmember Moore. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
That's unanimous. Thank you. All right. Move on to reports. Is there anything that council would like to report on?
I
Laura?
just want to, there was a great article about a farm here in Milton, Tony and Sarah Rich, how they have employed folks from Lionheart Works. And if you didn't get to read it, it is really what Milton's all about. It's a special needs program. Kids come on the farm and they learn skills so that they can go off and use those skills to work. And anyone that has a farm really needs help on their farm. And it's a great effort. And it's great to see, Tony and Sarah doing this. They're new farm owners, well, fairly new, within the past 3 years to Milton. So it was a great article. I just wanted to.
Thanks, I
highlight
haven't
that.
seen it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
there you go.
Okay. Anything else? We'll move on to Public Works with Sarah.
Mayor, while we're waiting, can I just mention that we want to say a happy birthday to Miss Sarah Leaders?
Happy birthday.
There.
Do you want us to? Or?
A fun way to spend the birthday here.
Exactly. You're supposed to have made the meeting a lot shorter.
Too late.
Thank you all. What I wanted to do tonight with the Public Works update was to give an update on our T-SPLOS program. We're coming up on the vote for the next round of the referendum. So just wanted to highlight what we've done so far under the current program and how the funding and projects are looking on that program. So this is for, the collections began April of 2017, and they will end with one more check in March of 2022, so end by April 2022. If you remember, we set up the original budgets for T-SPLOS based on projections and tiered projects based on expected projections. So our tier 1 projects were 31.5 million, tier 2 were 5.5 million, and tier 3 were another 5.5. So looking at what we've received to date, we've received 88.33% of the distributions. And looking at what we're expected to receive over the next 7 months, minus our program management expenses, because those aren't specifically tied to a certain project, we're looking at a total of $32.65 million. This is a map I showed with another presentation, just in our history as a city where we've spent money, where we've had federal, state match money on projects, some federal projects underway, and then local funded projects. And just to highlight in the 5 years of the T-SPLOS, what all we have done and what is being planned to be done as far as improvements and how those are spread out throughout the city. So this breaks down the projects by type, from congestion relief to operations and safety, bike ped, bridges, and then looking at starting those tier 2 projects we talked about a few weeks ago. That is Freemanville at Red and Bethany at Providence. Those are our tier 2 intersections. So again, this is just showing where those fall on the map and how they how the funding falls across those different categories. In congestion relief, we've completed 2 projects, the Morris at Webb Roundabout and the Northeast Crabapple, the new road, the roundabout at Charlotte Mayfield, and then some sidewalks on Mayfield Road. So we've spent $3.815 million, and we're estimated with the Morris widening to be spending another $9.76 million in congestion relief. In the operations and safety category, these are the projects listed that are under that category and what we spent to date. We've substantially completed Hopewell Hamby and Hopewell Thompson. We do still have some final billing on those to close those out. Hopewell Bethany, we have the construction award, so we know what the remainder of that one is going to cost. Freemanville Birmingham is in design, moving into right-of-way acquisition, and then 148 Green is just starting design. So we've spent $4.658 million, and estimated remaining expenses for all these projects is $6.29. Bridges, we had 1 project. We just have kicked off pre-construction activities. We're doing some survey and then the design package to put it out to bid, as well as the right-of-way acquisition. So that one's estimated remaining at $2.8 million. Under the bicycle and pedestrian category, the Cogburn sidewalks is nearly completed. That's what the graphic on this picture or the slide shows. We do still have some final expenses to come in on that one. We funded the trail master plan study. We're funding the local portion of the Big Creek Greenway connection. We have federal money for a majority of that project, but the T-SPLOST has funded the local share. And then we're just kicking off the Mayfield sidewalk that's connecting the lakeside development over to Freemanville Road. So spent $669,000 with the estimated remaining of $1.14 million. So we had some additional funding. We began concept work on the Tier 2 operations projects. So that was Bethany, Providence, and Freemanville at Red. Spent $68,000 so far, and the estimate from those concepts is $3 million to complete those. So in summary, we've spent about 30% of what we're projected to receive. That's $9.21 million. Estimated remaining expenses on those projects is $22.99, which brings our total for the program to $32.2. And back to referencing the number from the first slide, our total revenues is $32.65. We do still have several projects, actually 7, that are in pre-construction phases. So we won't know official construction estimates until those move into construction. So there could be some change with our final numbers, but just wanted to share we are in a good position with our projects and funding for a successful program. And if I answer any questions on T-SPLOST or any other public works items. All right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah. Courtney?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Since we last spoke, our department has met with various community members to discuss the great ideas they have for engaging with Milton citizens, organizations, and businesses. For instance, we met with Devija Kumar, a Milton High School student and volunteer from Teens Teach Technology, a nonprofit that was founded during the pandemic shutdown that connects teenagers to senior citizens to learn how to use social media, emails, and online conferencing platforms such as Zoom to stay connected with their families. We'll be working to see how we can connect this group to Milton senior citizens. Our event coordinator, Anita Jupin, has worked with some of our parks programs, such as the Photo Creative, Goat Yoga, and Rhythm and Shoes to promote their programs and increase enrollment. She's also worked with Steve Corey with the Milton Fire Corps and Dr. Sundak Ganesh from the Centers for Disease Control to provide outreach opportunities for the CDC's mobile health unit, including Crabapple Fest, where they were positioned with Milton Fire. And she also works with other departments within the city to establish opportunities to provide regular health services to Milton citizens through that program. In August, we heard from former Milton citizen and volunteer Charlie Fisher, who in 2016 helped the city obtain an artifact that was recovered from the World Trade Center after the attacks on September 11th, 2001. I helped plan a visit to Station 44 where Mr. Fisher could meet Chief Gabe Ben Musa and see the artifact in its new home. He had not seen Station 44, so he was excited to do that. In August, we also wrapped up our summer internship program. Our interns, Aiden and Chloe, who you met, learned about every city department and completed over 20 different projects, including a financial metrics comparison of surrounding cities and reorganization of the community development website. Finally, in August, we celebrated Anita Jupin, our event coordinator's second work anniversary in Milton. She continues to work extremely hard, bringing unique ideas and innovative community partnerships to the city. This leads me to September, when Anita and I honed in on the final details for planning Crabapple Fest. After the work and disappointment behind 2 cancellations in 2020, and while all of us still worried about COVID and grieved what it had taken from us, Anita and I worked as a team from March through September to plan Milton's largest and signature event. She worked on negotiating sponsorships, which connected potential and longtime Milton businesses to our signature festival, helped with recruiting and communicating with vendors, booked new unique food vendors and local entertainment, and the addition of new interactive kids activities, nonprofit participants such as Canine Assistance, and other booths such as the Milton Equestrian Committee with signature souvenir horseshoes were a huge hit. With help from nearly every city staff member and tons of volunteers, Crabapple Fest this past Saturday had record crowds. Vendors and visitors alike told us multiple times what a great time they had. 2 projects also came together as Birmingham Park Trails, which were marked by Anita and her family this summer, were named and had beautiful new signs made for them by Girl Scout Troop 16217, led by Ginger Lightburn and Cindy Tippett, in partnership with the Milton Equestrian Community. These signs will be installed very soon, so please visit the park and see Appaloosa Alley, or the Blue Trail, Trotter Trail, or the Red Trail, and Palomino Path, the Pink Trail, as well as all the other trails in Birmingham Park. Later this month, Milton will be hosting the Greater North Fulton Chamber of Commerce's Leadership North Fulton Hearing Council Chambers. At what will be their first class of the new session, they'll be learning about Milton, North Fulton demographics, meeting staff and working associates to learn about new development in Crabapple, and hearing about North Fulton community charities. Coming up event-wise, we have a special Halloween market and ribbon cutting at the Milton Farmers Market on October 13th from 3 to 6. In addition to the farmers and other vendors, there'll be music, a pet costume contest, and more. The final market day for the Milton Farmers Market is Wednesday, November 3rd. The Farmers Market continues to grow and evolve, building relationships with volunteers, vendors, local businesses, and their growing customer base. The vendors at that market are thrilled to be in Milton, and especially in the beautiful space at Broadwell Pavilion. Just a few days later in October, we have Carvin and Crabapple on Sunday, October 24th from 2 to 5. Then Veterans Day in November, and then if you can believe it, it is Christmas, and we'll have those events. Also in November, we'll be showing our gratitude for all the amazing volunteers in Milton as we celebrate Milton's Volunteer Appreciation Month. Groups like National Charity League, CATS, which is the Cambridge High School Volunteers, Young Men's Service League, and engaged citizens like Mark Arrington, who did all of the recycling at Crabapple Fest on a volunteer basis. The volunteers on Milton's boards and committees, and so many others in Milton are a big reason our community has such a strong sense of place and belonging, and we'll be showing them gratitude throughout the month. As winter and the holidays roll in, we'll also be getting ready to host another cohort of our Citizens Government Academy in January. We'll be working during these next few months to get with all departments to plan their curriculum and hands-on projects and recruiting Milton citizens to take part. As always, we're grateful for the opportunity to work with every department, connecting them with Milton, to all Milton citizens. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for your time and trust. And good night.
Thank you. All right, thanks, Gordon. Okay, let's see. Next, we added an executive session to discuss land acquisition, potential litigation, and personnel. Do I have a motion?
Motion to adjourn to executive session.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion to adjourn into executive session from Councilmember Jameson with a second from Councilmember Moore. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
That's unanimous.
Minimum 15-minute increments.
Yeah, we're gonna go. That's technically 8:45.
All right.
Move to readjourn,
Reconvene.
reconvene.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to reconvene. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
That's unanimous. And a motion to adjourn. So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
That's unanimous too.
Good night.
Okay, look at this, Tammy. We got, this is really fun.
I know, she's.
We got the phone chargers and pads and.
And the reminder of.
I know, I'm like impressed.
You could just get an ice maker up here, maybe a Coke
We gotta-
dispenser.
we gotta-